This is a tough situation for any administration, much less Trump, who's been attacked mercilessly by individuals who don't agree with his policies, even though they've helped an economic boom in America since he started. Now, this coronavirus hysteria began in China, but was influenced by the WHO, the World Health Organization. And unfortunately, we only heard what we wanted to hear. We only got the information from the WHO, which was coming direct from China because they have a huge billion-dollar investment in them. So they are not an organization that is free of hypocrisy or is just here for the scientific community, unfortunately. So by the time we learned of the coronavirus, it was January, and President Trump acted swiftly. He said, let's put money and funds toward the coronavirus to fight this virus that is coming up. But what did the Senate vote on? They voted on vapes. They voted on other issues. So the president, although he's the most powerful person in America, still has to be held, as it is the American way and the constitutional way, by the Senate. So he's not an all-powerful force who can just demand things happen right away, even though he knew this was an impending situation. Now, we locked down, we had masks prepared, but the WHO said we don't need masks. They then changed their stance on that. So the WHO is not an organization we should just be following blindly. What we should be listening to is other scientists. And what we should be doing is opening this country up and making sure that we have our jobs back and our lives back as soon as possible. Despite the deaths, they're lower than first reported, especially here in Los Angeles, where we've been extended to a lockdown for another 3 months with no scientific proof that it's even saving lives. We cannot just be told, save lives, stay home, without any proof and our constitutional rights being taken away.
Our government's response to the coronavirus pandemic has been a disaster. And it pains me as an American to say that. Donald Trump has failed the most critical test of leadership that a president can face. And as a result, coronavirus has killed over 80,000 Americans and infected over 1 million more. The Trump administration failed to prepare our nation's pandemic response despite receiving warnings from the international community months before infections arrived on our shores. And it will likely be years before the American way of life fully returns to normal. And even then, the loss of life stays with us forever. That's Donald Trump's sad legacy on coronavirus.
Welcome to today's Millennial Minute on Bold TV. I'm David Grasso. Today we have two very special guests that you heard from off the top. We have recording artist JoyVilla, who's a big Trump supporter, and we have Max Burns, another friend of Bold TV and a Democratic strategist. How are you both doing?
Great. I'm doing excellent. Even though we're in a lockdown, I'm still looking hot.
How are you doing, Max?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
So we'll start off with you, Max, since Joy got to comment first. Why do you think this administration hasn't done a good job in handling the coronavirus?
I think it's important off the top to say that, in honesty, any administration would have a challenge here. There is no administration, Democrat or Republican, that comes away from coronavirus with 0 deaths. The challenge that the president has made is that he's complicated this process by first delaying on taking steps to prevent coronavirus in January and February, then standing in front of the scientific community and contradicting them from the White House podium. We see it with Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci. We see it with injecting bleach and taking hydroxychloroquine. And there are any number of steps in this case where President Trump would have been better served to simply stand back and let the medical experts lay out what needs to be done. That's what we've seen in past public health crises, and we see the terrible effects of interrupting that process here.
So, Joy, what do you think about this? What do you think about what Max is saying? Is that a fair critique, or do you have other thoughts?
I think it's a pretty fair critique, you know, knowing that, okay, he could have stepped back, but also if he would have stepped back, he would have been criticized even more. They would have said he's not doing enough. What I see now is that we do have Ford coming in, American company, to produce masks. So we have more masks being produced. We had 1 billion masks sent to us. Sorry, not 1 billion, but it was 1 billion masks in production. Millions of them sent to New York. They were held by Governor Cuomo. We know that. He even said that on CNN. He's like, we're holding them until we need them. And of course, hospitals needed them. So it created this seemingly shortage, but it's not really a shortage. It's just red tape. Now, all governments, all people get caught up in this red tape, whether left or right. So I do think, being a conservative, that government should stand back and let the scientific community help us. And I also think we need to reopen America. So right now, I think it's all muddled. But what the president's doing now is saying, okay, let's reopen the country. Let's get American-made masks. Let's get the medical community what they need. And he's doing it in a really active way. I think that any president would be hard pressed to show up the way he's doing. So I'm actually happy with it, but I want this country to reopen as soon as possible.
So Max, you know, Joy is ceding you some territory there, but she's demanding that things be open. And a lot of Americans, quite frankly, feel that way because this is the fastest economic collapse we've ever seen, rivaling the Great Depression. What do you think about that? Do you think it's safe? Do you think it's prudent? Or would you rather us remain in lockdown?
Well, you're absolutely right that Americans want to reopen. And we've asked Americans to sacrifice so much already just in staying home, in being laid off temporarily, sometimes permanently. But what we've seen from the medical community, that includes Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, is this plan that we cannot reopen until we've seen 2 weeks of declining infections and that we've seen a drop in deaths. Now, we've not seen that across the country, but you're absolutely right. I think despite the attempts of some to make this a very partisan issue for their own purposes, the majority of Americans do believe we should open safely, and they do support Dr. Birx's plan to stage a reopen. The challenge here is we have President Trump now stepping up and essentially contradicting his own government's plan for reopening. He's now announcing a group of his own pro-Trump doctors who are advising that we reopen immediately, which is a bizarre statement to have both your official government opening plan and then your campaign's opening plan. We shouldn't be talking politics like
that. We need to open the country back up and people are losing jobs. I mean, you said that yourself, and we can agree this is a nonpartisan issue. I mean, for me, I'm like, people are losing their jobs. They've lost their jobs. They can't feed their families. We're losing. It's an economic blowout, just like you said, David. This is awful for the country. So I'm in the same mind. Okay, fine, let's open safely, but where are the numbers? How do we know that 2 weeks of a lockdown will actually decrease the numbers? Where are we getting this information from? There's conflicting information. We all don't know what exactly is helping or hurting. That's the problem, including the president. He's got certain people in his ear, and some certain people may want the sort of fanfare. I saved the country from coronavirus. So he may be going, okay, these doctors have this, what they're saying, but let's get another expert opinion, which is what I would tell someone if they want a root canal, if they want a toe surgery, get an expert opinion by many other experts, because the data doesn't lie, but human error does. And right now I'm seeing a lot of human error. We kerfuckled this, excuse my language. I'm trying to not cuss, but kind of cuss, but we made this a mess already. And I think the president is trying to pull us out of this as quickly as possible. People criticized him when he said he wanted to open by Easter, but now everybody's saying we should have opened the country sooner. You can't.
So Joy, I have a question for you, because Max brings up an important point. Do you sometimes feel like President Trump dilutes his own message with things like, I'm taking hydrochloroquine, et cetera, you know, and kind of throws a lot of the perhaps good stuff or prudent stuff and, you know, things that he's doing that are probably have the approval of, you know, large swaths of the American population?
No, I don't. I think that when the hydrochloroquine came out, it was in Los Angeles, actually. There was a doctor who had cured somebody with it. So it had shown to decrease the virus, and this person had no symptoms. Now, I think this virus is moving and changing because it's not one strain. I've heard different studies that it's 40 strains of a virus, but we know the flu can change. We know this is the nature of viruses. We know we had bird flu, we had swine flu, we had SARS, we had all these different flus that change and eventually die out because people regain the strength. And unfortunately, smaller population cannot regain the strength to fight this virus. Those people should be protected. The elderly, the immune deficient, but everybody else should not be stuck at home. I think the president's just saying, listen, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see if this works. He's not saying you have to do it. He's not saying a mandate, unlike our governor here, who is literally fining people if we don't go out with a mask. It's not a choice in Los Angeles. You must wear a mask, but yet there is no scientific proof that it is declining deaths. So why are we still stuck doing this with our rights taken away? It's ridiculous.
So Max, what do you have to say about that? The president taking hydrochloroquine or promoting, alternative treatments, et cetera, as you, in your own words, you say, contradict what the experts around him are saying.
It's a very dangerous thing to do from the White House podium. This idea that we can promote medicines that are not approved by the FDA, have not been approved by the CDC for treatment of coronavirus, have, if anything, shown in several studies to be a much more complicated situation than the president makes it out to be. There is the possibility, there's a study going on right now in Michigan that is testing hydroxychloroquine on a set of people. Those results are not in yet. We don't even know if it's effective in clinical trials. Now, for the president to be saying that, we've already seen Americans go out and take fish tank tablets that are hydroxychloroquine on the president's suggestion. And that was not.
The president suggest this, though. Did he say go out there and take it, try it, do it, use it? He even made a joke off camera saying, hey, maybe we could try bleach because bleach kills the virus. And then people tried drinking bleach. You can't blame the president for stupidity. That's other people's stupidity. He didn't say, let's go do this. I mean, am I wrong? Did he actually say, this is working, this is now the cure, everyone go try this?
He has said, yes, just yesterday, he said that this works, that he has taken it. And quite honestly, I'm not sure the presidential podium during a pandemic is a place for joking and to be making cracks about bleach or things that could be misinterpreted. This is a crisis. I mean, we didn't see President Bush making jokes during 9/11. We don't want that from the president in any situation.
So guys, before I end this, I want to really think about what the long-term impact of this. Joy, what do you think President Trump's re-election prospects are in this environment?
I think the president's going to get reelected if he can bring the country back to its standing legs, because he did such a fantastic job with the economy. Everybody had jobs, it was booming. Even defectors, people who hate him just for his personality, which is fine. You don't have to like the guy. I'm not trying to say you have to love him, but you can't argue with the facts that the economy was booming, more people had jobs, we were getting back up to that greatness that we expect from America. And then coronavirus happened. So he's going to have to really push through, reopen the country, listen to what people are saying, do it safely, yes, but make some bold moves. But I do believe he's going to get reelected. He's going to win with a landslide. Many supporters, such as myself, are going to vote for him again. And a lot of people are going to say, hey, there's something fishy going on with the WHO, and I'm glad he's taking away funding with this whole thing. It's not just on the president's head. This is a whole system. He happens to be the president, but remember, there are a lot of heads of states and shadow governments and people behind the scenes running different communities that are saying, do this, do that, do this, especially China. China is definitely at fault here. They absolutely had propaganda. They were telling us things are getting better over there when they were getting worse. I personally have family that live in China and said that that nation is absolutely punishing the Chinese people who are good people, but the government is twisted. So as long as President Trump cannot do like China, not have propaganda, but give us our freedoms back and reopen the country, he will win by a landslide. That's my view.
How about you, Max? What do you think? Do you agree with Joy?
I didn't count Donald Trump out in 2016. I certainly don't count him out now. There's certainly value that comes with being an incumbent president. But what we've seen so far is that now the president is 17 points underwater with voters on his handling of coronavirus. He's negative in places like Arizona, in Georgia, in North Carolina.
According to what polls?
These are Rasmussen and Survey USA, two of the president's favorite pollsters. Now, what I'm saying is not that this is necessarily a red zone for the president, but the president needs to be focused now on getting us through this crisis. And he needs to trust that if he handles this, the politics will take care of itself.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating insight. A lot of what you both are saying is correct. The economy was better during Trump's era. And, politics handle themselves when you have good leadership. So, excellent insight from both of you. I so appreciate your time, as do our viewers, and we'd love to have you both back when we're not sequestered in our homes. How does that sound?
That sounds
Absolutely.
amazing. Nice to meet you, Max, and thanks again, David. Always good to see you.
You
Thank you,
too.
Joy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. We'll be back soon with lots more content for you.